I'm always interested in debates, and I'm very reluctant to dismiss a debate simply because I don't agree with the conclusions that it is fighting to establish. I judge a debate very much on the quality of the debate, as much as I would judge it on trying to achieve a particular end. And therefore you will know, if you follow my channel, how much I approve of particular politicians who I think are impressive speakers in the House, whether I agree with their views or not. And when I say that somebody is impressive, when I say somebody is a good parliamentarian, inevitably the comment section floods with stuff about their reputation or what they espouse and so on. That is a secondary consideration. Now, when we come to this petition which is up, I'm surprised how much concern it seems to be provoking, and I think it immediately deals with those. It conjures up the problems of our system, of our democratic system. We have a representative democracy. In other words, we elect our MP to represent us for a period of 5 years. Our MP belongs to a political party. That the person with the greatest number of votes, with the greatest number of members of that political party, forms the government and becomes the Prime Minister. So the person who leads that political party becomes the Prime Minister. In most cases, the Prime Minister is appointed by the monarch because the Prime Minister is the monarch's first Prime Minister. And when you go to the website, to the government website, the information you get is very, very carefully constructed. It's all about percentages. It looks very clear, but it really isn't, and the real figures are hidden. The real figures are significantly more worrying, because the real figures tell us that not very many people voted in the last election, and that the number of votes between the Conservative loss and the Labour victory are actually quite small. So the Labour Party got 9,660,081 votes. The Conservatives got 6,755,953 votes. And what is so surprising is that the Reform Party, which only got 4 seats, or 5 seats, got 4,072,947 seats, eclipsing the Lib Dem Party, which got quite a lot more seats. They only got 3,487,568 votes. So why am I saying this? Because in this morning's breakfast show, when Keir Starmer was being interviewed, let me play you the thing.
Are you now feeling the pressure? Because I think there's a petition that's currently online of 1.9 people who want the election to go again. Is it 2 million now?
It's just over 2 million.
Do you feel the pressure?
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that many of them mourned a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There would be plenty of people who didn't want to sit in the first place. So look, what I focus on is the decisions that I have to make every day.
But surely you want us, the public, to trust you, to like you, to think.
Let's stop that there, because what he's actually saying, before we go on about whether or not he's more popular than Mr. Farage, which is where this is going, his main reason for not accepting, for not being worried about this petition, is that many people didn't vote Labour. And therefore, there's a good many people who might sign this petition. In other words, the people who will be signing this petition will be people who didn't vote for Labour. So you've got two arguments. Number one, you could say that if the petition gets more votes than 9,660,081 votes, then it becomes a significant problem because it suggests that people who voted Labour have got buyer's remorse. It's still not going to be a legal position that a general election would have to be called. It's certainly not a political position that a general election would have to be called, because a general election can only be called on the whim of the Prime Minister, or because the Prime Minister suffers, or because the ruling party suffers a vote of no confidence. And together, the Lib Dems, the SNP, Reform and the Conservatives are not sufficiently equipped to defeat the current Labour Party with the number of seats that it's got. So there is no reason at all for the current Labour Party to concede and to have a general election. There might be a moral reason, as I say, if the number of votes that this particular petition were to get were to exceed either the 9 million plus votes, or to exceed a combination of the 6 million plus votes for the Conservatives, the 4 million for Reform UK, the 3 million for the Lib Dems, and then probably even adding in the SNP. So if it got all those, then I think there would be a moral incentive, possibly even some political pressure, for Keir Starmer to acquiesce to a general election. But I don't think this comes much more. I don't think this goes any further than the constant refrain chortled out in the last 2 or 3 years of the Conservative tenure, where the Labour Party was saying we want a general election now. And frankly, the Labour Party were on much stronger ground, given the fact that so many of the more recent Conservative Prime Ministers had not led the party into a general election, and therefore could conceivably be said not to have a mandate. That again is not true, but there's a certain moral weight to it. Why is it not true? Because the Prime Minister of the day is chosen by the monarch, and customarily is the leader of the largest party. So whoever that largest party puts forward can be Prime Minister. They don't need to be voted in. We don't vote for a Prime Minister in this country. We vote for our own MP, which is why when our own MP scurrilously moves from one party to another, that doesn't automatically trigger a by-election. Now, morally, it should, shouldn't it? Politically and legally, it doesn't. And that's why. I hope I've explained some of that. I must say, I'm sort of rather enjoying this discussion. And somebody said that I wasn't saying what is it, when you criticise the Labour Party and you want them to hold a general election, but you didn't do the same thing about the Conservative Party. Well, actually, I was deeply critical of the last Conservative Party. Certainly under Liz Truss and definitely under Rishi Sunak. And I feel perfectly entitled to be critical of this present Labour government on the same basis. I have abandoned tribal loyalties. I am not a member of any party. And by the way, just in case anybody is in any doubt, I have no affiliation and no liking for the Reform Party. If I were to vote for any party at all, it would be a party very small, which is called Rejoin. But that doesn't really exist in the House of Commons, and therefore it isn't a serious option at the moment. But that would be the only party I would consider voting for at this moment. I think Brexit is the cause of most of our troubles. And trying to readjust our relationship with Europe, I think, is a fundamental and an essential move that, as a country, we have to take. Now, Keir Starmer may be in a position of may be in the process of doing some of that, but I think he has to go much further than he has suggested. And while I think Brexit cannot be reversed, and probably should not be reversed, by the way, I think there are lots of things that we can do and should be doing to reignite our relationship, our closer relationship with Europe, and perhaps solve some of the problems like the problem of migration. The term illegal migration is a misunderstood term, and we in Britain have made this much worse by redefining the term to our own satisfaction. That needs to go. We need to keep the same definition that is being used in Europe. An illegal migrant is somebody who doesn't have paperwork or who's overstayed their visa. That is an illegal migrant. And somebody who's come to the country by an illegal route is not an illegal migrant. And that needs to be established very clearly by law. It needs to. If we're all speaking about the same thing, then we can find a way round that. But I think ultimately the way is to redefine or repurpose the 1951 Refugee Convention, which means an international conference. And I think Britain would be well placed to hold one, and Rishi Sunak should have done it. Rishi Sunak has emerged from his tenure with one benefit only, and that is that he managed to improve the economic mess left by Liz Truss. He could have done something of value. He didn't. He had the brain to do it, which he demonstrated when he was Chancellor, and which he demonstrated in addition in that brilliant speech in response to Rachel Reeves' budget. Brilliant piece of rhetoric. Brilliant. Whether you like Rishi Sunak, whether you like the things he stands for, or whether you don't, you have to concede that was a brilliant piece of parliamentary oratory. We haven't seen much of that in the last 8 years. But it's been 8 years, and Boris Johnson, who should have been doing these barnstorming speeches, who should have been doing that sort of thing during his time as Prime Minister, frankly never did. He was pretty lightweight as a speaker in the House of Commons. So in fact you have to go back, I would say not even to David Cameron, you have to go back to Tony Blair to find another speech of any significance as a piece of oratory. And that, frankly, I think probably would be the speech before the Iraq War. Again, you don't need to accept Tony Blair's views or indeed agree with the Iraq War to recognise that his speech about the justice of going to war against Iraq was a brilliant speech. But there are very few of these. And for Rishi Sunak to be one of them is an extraordinary achievement. And he wasted his time. We could sort out migration, and we could sort out our relationship with Ireland. At the moment, the Irish police are picking up huge numbers of migrants who are seeping through the border into the mainland of Ireland from Northern Ireland. They're being collected on buses and on roadsides, taken to Dublin and sent back to the UK directly. Why? Because it's demonstrable that their first port of call was the UK. And I'm afraid the arguments that prevent France from prevent Britain from sending migrants back to France do not prevent Ireland from sending migrants back to the UK. The arguments are slightly different. Again, we need to deal with this. We're not dealing with this because Keir Starmer is pussyfooting around, trying to be tough and nasty, and Kemi Badenoch doesn't know what she's doing. At the moment, she's talking to some people in some businesses, but I suspect not very impressively.